Hey everybody, it is You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week, my first question comes to me from Gurin Prime, who says, Hey Steve, there's been something that I've been feeling kinda guilty about. I identify myself as a feminist, and yet I still consume media that sexualizes women. I personally feel it's okay just as long as they don't go the Michael Bay route and forego actual writing characters in favor of titillation, but I have seen some other feminists lump pretty much any sexualized female character in that group, regardless of whether or not the character is actually interesting on her own. And it makes me wonder if I'm just bad at being a feminist. Any thoughts on this? Anything to make me feel better or worse about myself? You have come to the right person for absolution, my friend, because I have a very similar problem. There are types of media, there are shows and movies and whatevers that I enjoy that I also find problematic in terms of how they depict sex and how they depict women. Superhero comics and pro wrestling being the two big ones. I think it's possible, and I think it's fair, to be able to enjoy and appreciate art forms, entertainment, etc., while also acknowledging that they have problems. I don't think there's anything hypocritical about that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think it's much better to be aware of and worried about and questioning of and acknowledging of the problems you see in TV shows or films or books or songs or whatever that you enjoy than to watch the same thing and just be completely blind to it. So I think it's a good thing. Swearing ape. A Three's Company scholar, eh? 3 easy questions for Ashley. 1. How many times did Jeffrey Tambor guest star? 2. What were the names of the trio in the original Man About the House? It's sort of a trick question. 3. If Jack was such a ladies' man, why was he so squeamish and jumpy when actual sex presented itself? Lana was a MILF, and that final episode with Vicky was just sad, like he was a teenage boy. The Three's Company scholar and my lovely wife Ashley is seated just off camera. She will be perfectly happy to field your Three's Company questions.
Jeffrey Tambor starred 3 times in Three's Company. 4 if you count the Ropers episode, which they often show in syndication as part of the Three's Company package. Do you want me to say the 3 times he starred?
Sure, yeah. Impress us all with your acumen.
Jeffrey Tambor starred as the rich guy who wanted to marry Cindy in season 5. He starred as the crazy doctor in 2 Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And he also was Jack's dentist in Jack Goes to the Dentist.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that one.
The 3 names of the original characters on Man About the House were Robin Tripp, who was the Jack character in the American version, Chrissy, and Joe, instead of Janet. And the third question
Why was Jack so squeamish about sex if he was such a ladies' man?
Because it was the sexiest show on TV and they had received a lot of flack, and I guess they didn't want to push the envelope. But I think that Jack was skittish because I think deep down he was an old-fashioned kind of guy. And as much as he chased after sex, he was sort of, like the dog chasing cars. He doesn't know what he's going to do when he gets one. So, and I also think, he wasn't like Larry, who got laid every other minute.
Right.
And that's what made him likable, that's what made him likable. He didn't always get what he wanted. So, that is my analysis.
And that comes straight from a Three's Company scholar. Emigdios back. On Wednesday night, I was watching the second gubernatorial debate in Florida and was flabbergasted. Governor Scott wasted a good chunk of the time not wanting to do the debate because his challenger, former Governor Christ, had a fan under his desk. He also seemed to avoid some real issues, such as climate change, same-sex marriage, education, while giving unpopular statements that he wouldn't amend Stand Your Ground after the Trayvon Martin incident. Steve, what are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that Scott has essentially lost Florida for the Tea Party? well, trying to avoid having to talk about climate change and same-sex marriage is just part of the overall Republican Party strategy this year. That seems to be their tactic to just. In previous years, they've used same-sex marriage as a wedge issue, but now that the tide has turned against that, and support for legalizing and recognizing same-sex marriage seems to be the growing consensus, the Republicans are just sort of like, no, never mind. As for the fan stuff, I mean, it's one of the weirdest bits of political theater I've ever seen. These are two men who are running as the nominees of the only two major viable political parties in this country, running to be the chief executive of one of the most visible populist states that is often a hotly contested state in presidential elections. And they're fighting over whether or not one of them should be allowed to have a fan like at his feet to cool him off on stage. I can kind of see both sides of it. I get the feeling that Charlie Crist knew that the fan was against the rules. And yes, it's a really stupid rule, but you know what? These political debates, the rules are like so arcane and stupid. Every possible contingency is anticipated, and every tiny opportunity for one guy to embarrass himself is their steps are taken to avoid that at all costs. It's insane. So I know that Charlie Crist or someone on his campaign had to know that the fan would be a problem. So I think that was done on purpose to bait Rick Scott to see what he would do. And Rick Scott took the bait. Rick Scott could have diffused the whole situation by just saying, okay, Charlie's got a fan. So what? I'm just going to go out on stage and have a debate. That's the power to make this into a debacle or a triumph was completely in the hands of Rick Scott. All he had to do was say, oh, he's got a fan? Okay, so what? I don't care. I'm going to go out and have the debate. There's more important things to talk about than whether or not the guy has a fan and whether or not that's in violation of the stupid rules. That's not what happened, though, is it? Rick Scott said, no, he has a fan. He's not allowed to have a fan. And he delayed the debate for about 5 or 6 minutes while the poor host and questioners, the judges of the debate, had to vamp and try to keep Charlie Crist from turning it into a stump speech. The whole thing was crazy. The whole thing was crazy. And it's an example of just how petty and stupid our politics has become, and of how really awkward and tone deaf and inept some of our politicians are. When you would think when they got to that level they would they would have been a lot better at it than this. Super Drops X. Hey Steve, I tried this 2 weeks ago, thought I might give it another go. How do you think fiction affects the people who consume it? To give a personal example, I lived most of my young to adult life, 29 now, with society regarding me as a ticking time bomb, as I like to play RPGs and consume a lot of violent fiction, being fascinated by fictional violence. I am, however, a pacifist and abhor all forms of real violence. Personally, I can't say I remember ever being majorly impacted emotionally by fiction. It's never made me cry, it's never made me happy, it's never made me angry. What are your thoughts? Can fiction turn someone into a different person? I'm not an alarmist who thinks that we should blame violent media or violent video games for the ills of society. I don't think it's that direct of a connection. I'm not someone who thinks that if a child plays violent video games or if a child watches violent films or violent television or whatever, that they're automatically going to become a violent person. I don't think it works that way. But I do think that we are certainly influenced by the media that we consume. We are certainly influenced and impacted by fiction and by the news and by everything. It's just a part of our experience. Reading fiction, watching films, watching things on television, listening to music, these are all parts of our empirical experience. And how could they not influence us? And how could they not change us in certain ways, even in ways that we are not aware of? In fact, I would say maybe most often in ways that we are not aware of. It doesn't mean that we are helpless and we are without will and we're just, we're robots and we automatically act out whatever we see or whatever we hear. That's not the way it works. But it certainly is an influence. I think it would be foolish to deny that fiction or anything that we experience or watch has the power to influence us and to change us. Radical Bacon. I've cut off ties with most of my family because they circled the wagons around my rapist brother. I'm just really livid and pissed off at them. Can you make me laugh? I want you to know how seriously I take this request. I take it seriously enough that I actually Googled the funniest joke in the world, and I discovered a joke that has been scientifically verified as the funniest joke in the world. And I'm going to tell you that joke now, and hopefully it'll make you laugh and it'll, make you forget your troubles for a few minutes. I'm very sorry to hear about everything that's happening with you and your family. So here is the scientifically verified funniest joke in the world. Okay. A call comes in to a 911 dispatch office. The operator answers the call. Hello, 911, what is your emergency? The call is coming from a hunter who is out in the woods calling on his cell phone. He says, I need your help. I need an ambulance. My buddy is really hurt. I think he might be dead. The operator says, okay, the first thing you need to do is to go and make sure that he's dead. And the line goes quiet for a second. She hears a loud gunshot. The guy gets back on the phone. He says, okay, he's definitely dead now. What's next? Funniest joke in the world. Jesse Steck. Dear Steve and Ashley, if she's willing to answer this one, I am an ex-military, over 25 college student, and recently I have met a girl I like quite a bit. The problem is that she's a bit younger than me. I don't mean into illegal territory or anything, only that our difference in age is big enough that I worry that I can no longer relate to things that she's going through because those experiences are too old for me, and she probably can't relate to things I'm going through because she has no real experience with them yet. Nevertheless, I enjoy the time we spend together and the conversations we have. I like being around her. She's pretty, intelligent, informed, educated, articulate, kind, empathetic, creative, and compassionate. And besides all that, I just get that warm feeling inside when I talk to her. Like just getting to know her makes me happy. And what else could you want in a person? So what should I do? And by the way, I would really love to hear what Ashley thinks about this. Thanks. Ashley.
Well, I'm not much better at this than Steve is. Sounds like a fine deal. It doesn't matter the age difference. Just do what you would do with somebody you like.
Yeah.
Just support them. She's young. She wants to go to college, or her career choices, or your things that you've already done. Just be her partner in that. Don't hold her back. Don't make her feel like she's in a rush to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Is that what you would say?
That's what I would say. Yeah,
I'm not. Just because I have a vagina does not make me any better at giving relationship advice than Steve.
Sadly.
So.
But yeah, I would say if you like her and she likes you and it's legal, hat trick. Go for it. That's what I would say. Power Minotaur. As a Christian and a deaf individual, I find it callous when religions of any faith view my deafness as something that is in need of a cure, or that one day when I go to heaven, if such a place exists and I don't screw up to the much warmer section of the afterlife, that I will be hearing. I have a language, culture, and community that I find enriching and fulfilling. I don't want to be cured, and am damn joyous that I was born deaf. I seriously doubt God made a clerical error and was too lazy to give me hearing. Thus, I believe when I go to heaven or hell, or just fade into nothingness, I'll still be deaf. Why do people assume that deaf individuals need or want to be cured? Why does any religion believe that? Also, please do a 5 stupid things about deaf culture / deaf people. 5 stupid things about deaf people. That would be something. It's really hard to get their attention from behind. I don't know. I think that that instinct to assume that a deaf person or a person with any sort of handicap or disability wants to be cured comes from the assumption that people like us are normal and people who aren't like us are not normal, but they must want to be like us so they can be normal. I think that's a natural and not always a very healthy human assumption. Whatever group you're in is the in-group, and however you are, assuming that how you are conforms to the popular convention of how you're supposed to be, well, that's normal. that's normal. And if someone's not normal, then if you can fix them so that they will be normal, well, clearly that's what they want, right? It's just an assumption that people make, and it's not just a religious assumption. It's an assumption that I think a lot of people of all backgrounds, of all philosophies, of all religions make about people who are deaf or blind or unable to walk or mentally disabled in some way. It's just a natural assumption, and it's when someone like you says, well, actually, I like the way I am, and I wouldn't want to change it if I could. Some people have a little trouble with that. Some people find that strange because they think, well, but you can't hear. Everybody else can hear. Why wouldn't you want to be able to hear? What's wrong with you? And it's hard to get people to understand that. I think I understand. I can respect what you say. I can respect that it's a part of who you are. You're a part of a particular culture. You come from a particular experience that enriches you, that informs you, that shapes you, and it's not something you would just want to give away. I completely get that. I do think that if there were some medical solution to deafness, if there was a simple procedure that everybody could undergo and it would cure you of being deaf and you would be able to hear just like everybody else normally for the rest of your life, I do think that would be a wonderful thing. But I think it should only be available to people who want it. Like, I don't think you should be compelled to get it. And I think what you're talking about in the afterlife is God would just sort of give it to you without even asking you. God would say, oh, hey, good news. You're in heaven now. You're not deaf anymore. You can thank me later. Without even consulting you. And that's just part and parcel of the Christian God. He knows what's best for you, and he's going to give it to you whether you want it or not. Mark Arangis, hey Steve, whenever reading up on the wage gap, it seems the cause of it is not that women are paid less, but largely that women go into less profitable professions. If this is indeed true, would it not be better to call it the career gap, and instead of trying to equalize salaries, which they supposedly already are, try to incentivize women to go for those more profitable careers? Sorry if you've already talked about it, but I've yet to hear your take on this matter. Cheers. I think that incentivizing women to pursue more profitable careers is something that we should be doing, and to a certain extent we are doing. I've seen campaigns designed to encourage girls to enter STEM careers, for example, to enter the tech field. To go to college for engineering, to go to college for a science degree, something, I think that needs to continue. I think that's a very positive effort, and I think that's a very positive goal, to encourage women to pursue these careers. There's a really great commercial that I saw a couple of months ago that was part of this campaign to encourage girls to enter STEM fields, and it was following a particular little girl from her childhood up through her adolescence and into her when she's about to enter college, and it was just little snippets of her life, little moments where she showed interest in something technical and then was sort of shooed away from it by the men in her life. Like she picked up a screwdriver and her dad would say, oh honey, here, let me take care of that. Or she was looking under the hood of a car and someone would say, oh here, let your brother handle that. And she was discouraged because that wasn't a typically girly thing to do. Girls shouldn't be interested in cars. Girls shouldn't be interested in tools. Girls shouldn't be interested in these things. And she was sort of steered away from these paths that she seemed to have an innate interest in. I thought that was a great commercial, and I think that's a great message that, people should not be cued, should not be conditioned that certain fields are not for them just because they happen to be of a particular gender or come from a particular walk of life or whatever. I think it was great, and I think that should continue. And I think you're right. I think the career gap, if we can call it that, is something that should be closed. And I think, that will definitely affect the wage gap. I think that's a great idea. I don't think that there's anything controversial about that. I'm 100% behind encouraging women to go into fields that they are underrepresented in at the moment, and for changing the cultural expectations and the conditions that might nudge them away from those fields. I'm completely behind that 100%. You may have noticed that I did not bother to come up with a clever segue for the next section of this video this week. That is because I have been ill. I have felt under the weather, and I just did not have the energy to write a clever transition from the thunderclap to the next section of the video. So I hope you can forgive me if I just say that, you know what, it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Bahar Godzian. Hey Steve, was wondering which atheist YouTubers are your favorites. Love your channel. Oh, the Thinking Atheist, Seth Andrews, is my favorite. I also love Dark Matter 2525. I love Jason with a D, Bob Smearfack, Wildwood Claire. Those are probably the big ones. Bible Reloaded, I love those guys. There's a lot, and I'm sure there are people who I haven't mentioned who will be angry with me for not mentioning them. But those are the ones that just jump to mind right now. Dennis Bergkamp 25. Hey Steve, have you ever visited Europe? Well, that's an easy one. No. Ashley has been to London, but she's never been to the continent. I have never been anywhere. Der Wunderbar Bar, would you like to have lived in the early 19th century London? Again, an easy one. No, I would not like to have lived in 19th century London, or really 19th century anywhere. Lewis Eng 114, when you do the voices, he means for the Steve and Stuffy videos, do you record all the lines for one character before the next, or do you do the voices in chronological order? I do the voices in chronological order, but I do them all at once. The way I shoot the Steve and Stuffy videos is I'll do all of my scenes, all of my stuff when I'm on camera in a separate block. I do all the setups and all the takes of me, and then I do all of the footage of the animals in their various poses, their various locations, and then I record the voices separately, but all at once. But I'll act it out in the order that it's written. So I don't do Stuffy's lines all at once and then Toby Benson's and then whatever. I do back and forth as it is in the script. And then I put it all together and the magic happens. It's magic. 0816 Egg. Steve, what's your views on ghosts? I know you're probably agnostic about them, but speaking in terms of belief, do you believe they exist or no? My beliefs about ghosts are identical to my beliefs about gods. I see no evidence that they exist, therefore I assume, and my position is that they do not exist. Under Albert, hey Steve, since you're a film guy, I'd like to know, A, what do you think of the Star Wars series? I really like the original trilogy. B, are you excited about the new J.J. Abrams movie coming out? Yes. C, if you have a favorite and least favorite film in the series, obviously from the classic and prequel trilogy respectively, unless you're some kind of sociopath. Thanks a million, love the channel. Favorite from the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back. Least favorite, Return of the Jedi. Favorite from the prequel trilogy, I guess, Episode 3. Least favorite, Episode 2, although I must say I don't like any of the prequels. I think all three of the prequels are horrible. But if I had to pick a best one and a least favorite one, that's what they would be. Alan Key 86. Hi Steve, I've noticed that Stuffy and company stay remarkably static when they talk. In my experience, cuddly toys and puppets and other inanimate objects all tend to vibrate rhythmically to indicate when they are speaking. When Stuffy and his colleagues are off camera, do they shake when they speak? Thanks in advance for answering this important question. They all move when they speak off camera. Especially Toby Benson. He is quite animated and moves quite a bit, and is often very critical of my directorial decision to not have him move on camera. He really wants to move on camera. But yes, they all move quite energetically. They don't vibrate rhythmically, but they move when they talk. Sam Clemens RIGL. Lightning round question. Halloween is almost upon us, and Mecha Shives has his next kaiju battle at Pumpkin Fest in Keene, New Hampshire. Who will his monstrous foe be for the evening's festivities? I think it would be fun if Mecha Shives fought like a gigantic version of Creationist Cat. Maybe Creationist Cat could grow into a gigantic kaiju version. Like he could be like an Ultraman type of thing. He just goes like, you know, something like that. Ultra Creationist Cat versus Mecha Shives. That would be the fight of the century. Adam Firstman. Hey Steve, I've become obsessed by your channel and watch it all the time. All the time. Even when you're sleeping, shh, pretty, pretty, shh. I have posters of you all over my basement. I wear the same baseball cap. I have stuffed toys who tell me to do bad things to strangers. I even have a beard, and that is just evil. So my question is, what, if anything, creeps you the hell out? Happy Halloween! What creeps me the hell out? You know what really creeps me out, seriously, in all seriousness, for realsies? What creeps me out is when adults dress like their children. It creeps me out to see like a grown person, a grown mother or father wearing like a Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt. That gives me a deep feeling of unease when I see that. There's something about that that is just wrong. Don't dress like your children. You're a grown-up. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. Don't wear stuff with Pooh and Tigger on it. Have a little more self-respect. Yeah. It's just not right. It's unnatural. It is not what was intended. Anyway, that's it for the questions. I'm almost done. I'm petering out. You can tell I'm sort of, just rolling on momentum to the end here. I'm surviving on basically Dayquil and instinct at this point. Anyway, before I get out of here, I'm going to do the shout out. And the shout out this week goes to a couple of guys who are two of my favorite YouTubers, two of my favorite guys. They're the guys behind the Bible Reloaded, Hugo and Jake. They have a second channel now. It's been out for a couple of months where they play video games. They talk about movies. It's sort of their entertainment pop culture channel, and it's called Unpopular Culture. So if you like the Bible Reloaded, if you like Hugo and Jake, if you find their brand of humor suits you and makes you laugh, tickles your funny bone, as it were, do yourself a favor and take it from me and check out their pop culture channel, Unpopular Culture. It's very easy to remember. Just take that common phrase, popular culture, and put un as a prefix in front of it, and there you go, Unpopular Culture. It's really funny. It's really good stuff. They review movies. They review TV shows. They do Let's Play videos where they play video games, which I don't watch because I think that kind of thing is boring as hell, and I don't understand why other people like it. But if you like it, Hugo and Jake do it, and I'm sure they're better at it than other people are. So there you go. Unpopular Culture. Highly, highly recommended. Now, before I get out of here, I have a bonus shout out as well. My pals over at A Very Public Spanking, who have been kind enough to have me on as a guest 3 times, have a new channel. It's a backup channel. It's a second channel, A Very Public Spanking of 2. And the reason why this channel exists is because after multiple copyright violations, they have lost the ability to stream live events, which is an important thing for A Very Public Spanking of, since that's the show. So from now on, when A Very Public Spanking of has an event, Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time is when it usually starts. Go to the backup channel, the Very Public Spanking of 2 channel. That's where you want to go to see it, to watch it live. And it's linked on screen here, and it's linked in the description box as well. Go check out the backup channel of Very Public Spanking of, so you can see their live events from now on. And a bit of personal business before I go. This weekend, this Sunday, starting at 12 noon Eastern Time, of course, will be the second of my Patreon patron hangouts. This one is subtitled Love at Any Cost. I will be on live for 1 hour. Anybody can watch. Anybody's free to watch and comment and ask questions, etc. But if you are a Patreon patron of mine, you can join the hangout and you can talk with me on air for the hour. It'll be a ton of fun. I'm sure it was a great time last month when my friends Henrik and Christy Winters joined me for the hour. If you are a Patreon patron of mine, check my Patreon page at around 11:45 noon Eastern Time for the join link, and it'll only be viewable to Patreon patrons. And if you are a patron of mine, you can click the link and you can join me live on the air in the hangout for an hour. It'll be so goddamn much fun. You won't know what to do with yourself. So if you are a patron of mine and you want to be on the air with me and join me in a hangout for all the world to see, Sunday, October 26th, this Sunday, starting at noon Eastern. Check out my Patreon page for the link before the show, and I would love to join as many of you as possible in this show. It'll be a lot of fun. Thank you guys as always for watching me this week. Please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious, nothing is too silly, and I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next episode of You Had to Ask. So please ask, I shall answer, and until then, take care everybody. I'll see you next time.